How can a body this small hold up a head this big? What is actually holding all of this together? Do you think it is scale and proportion? How is it balancing? Over the last 2 years, I have crocheted this doll more times than I care to admit. These two are just some of the ones that I've kept. All to figure out the best way to crochet this piece so that it is structurally sound. This is what I got so far, and I think I finally figured out the thing. My name is Z, these are Mini Z's, and I'm a crochet toy maker. And welcome to my Dollhouse project. I make up stories about girls going on exciting adventures, and then over a period of time, I crochet the pieces to teach myself how proportion works. Kind of like how a musician practices their musical instruments, this is my version of practice and exercising my crochet muscles. So I make up these stories, and every story focuses on a design issue that I'm trying to work out. I started this Dollhouse project 2 years ago, and this is the very first story that I made. A day at the beach. This doll is not doing too well. The head is too big and too heavy. There's not enough support in the neck, and there's just too much hair. Every doll that I've made since has been trying to figure out how to fix those problems. It looks like there's a lot going on here, but each story is centered around a character doing a specific activity. This is Polly sitting with the treasures of an Egyptian pharaoh's tomb. That's a cat sitting on a cat bed. This cat bed is an exact replica of one of the golden beds in Tutankhamun's tomb. For my latest story, I'm going to be taking myself on a safari adventure. Yes, you heard that right. I am making a miniature version of myself. And for the first time ever, I'm going to crochet 2 dolls side by side, each using a different technique and testing the differences to gauge what actually works over time. Kind of the whole point of this project is to become more efficient at my craft. I for sure want to know what is going to make me crochet faster. But before I let you in on the first test, let me show you how I plan a story and decide on what pieces I'm going to crochet. So the picture that I have in my head is of me on safari in the Kruger National Park, sitting in one of those safari trucks, going on a game drive with all the animals kind of running around in the bushes. Each doll will get their own safari outfit with, and I really want to add some accessories, binoculars, a map, and some snacky things like water, a cooler box with some snacks, because you can't go on a game drive without any patkos. This is so weird. I usually make replicas of other people. This is going to be the first time I make a replica of myself. There are 3 ways that I like to match a custom doll to their person. As close as I can, I try to match the skin tone, the eye color, and the hairstyle with that of the person that I am making the toy for. These 3 touch points, as generic sounding as they are the easiest ways that you can personalize a custom doll. I make a lot of baby mobiles with safari animals, and surprisingly enough, except for Polly and the sheeple, I don't have any other animals in my dollhouse. And technically, going on safari, if you're lucky, all you see are animals. I suppose I could have chosen a zoo, but I don't like animals in cages. My number 1 golden rule when designing toys is to make sure that these dolls are strong enough that they can be played with, that they're not going to fall apart, and that they can be handled. So they need to be strong. So to that end, I'm going to be prioritizing strength but also balance. I would like all of the animals to be able to stand up on their own. The problem I always run into with these is that the doll and all the animals are top heavy. The heads are much bigger than the body will allow to hold up, so they always kind of topple over. For example, the lion has a big mane which makes it heavy, the elephant has big ears, the giraffe has a long tall neck, and all of these, the way I design them, have thin legs, so they need to be able to balance. I want to add some kind of weight into the body. I've never done that before. Because these bodies are so small, there isn't enough space to add too much kind of fancy things inside it. I usually stuff the inside of these pieces with pipe cleaners, a hope, and a dream. So figuring out how to keep these things balanced is going to be key. I divide the doll into 3 equal sections: a head, a body, and the legs. Each of these sections has an equal height, and that's 5 centimeters, which means this doll is a 15 centimeter doll. A doll is made up of a central part, which is the body, and all the other pieces, if you include the arms, all the other pieces are crocheted straight onto the body. The body is the central part. Like a starfish, usually you would crochet all of these pieces separately and then sew them together. If you crochet a doll in one piece, which is what I prefer to do, you still crochet all the pieces, but instead of sewing the pieces on at the end, you crochet the pieces together as you go along. Almost like a join as you go granny square blanket. Not that I've ever made any of that, but you get the point. When you are crocheting a doll in one piece, you need to pick a direction. I usually go bottom up, but you could also choose to work from the top down. What you choose is going to depend on the type of look that you're going for, because there are differences. For a bottom-up construction, I crochet each leg individually and then join them, carry on crocheting the body until I get to the neck, and then I do a combination of two things to secure the structure on the inside of this doll. The first thing is I try and mimic building a spine from the bottom of the body to almost the top of the head. I use pipe cleaners for this. Now, what I've learned is that over time, this pipe cleaner on the inside moves, especially for toys that get played with a lot. What I currently do to stop that from happening is that I extend the neck and crochet around the pipe cleaner to hold it in place and to stop it from moving around. I also try and add enough stuffing in the body along the shoulders for the same reason. The weakest part of any doll is going to be this neck join. So you want to not just secure the neck, but you also want the head not to kind of flop all over the place. I think of it like building a lollipop. Side note here, I've added pipe cleaners into the legs of the light chocolate mini Z because I've noticed over time the legs tend to fall flat. I would have done it with the dark chocolate one, but I just forgot. The first fun test is going to be crocheting the same head in two different ways. One is going to be top down and the other is going to be from the bottom up. The top-down head is going to be a separate piece that gets positioned over the neck and sewn on, whereas the bottom-up head gets crocheted straight onto the neck, making the legs, body, and head a one-piece construction. I started crocheting the top-down head because that's the easiest one. The trick with crocheting a separate piece like this is to make sure that the part of the head that's going to get sewn onto the top of the neck or to the neck needs to have the same amount of stitches. In other words, the bottom of the head needs to have the exact amount of stitches that the neck has. And this is true whether you are sewing two pieces together or whether you are crocheting two pieces together. The last round of each of these pieces needs to match your stitches stitch for stitch. Do you get what I'm saying? So for example, this doll, the opening at the bottom of the head has 6 stitches and the number of stitches around the neck is 6 stitches. This makes your pieces look seamless and it stops there from being any gaps between your joins. You don't want to be able to see your stuffing peeking through your stitches. One very useful thing to note is that when you are crocheting a one-piece doll, you want to have exposed stitches, so front loops open like this, so that you can attach pieces quite comfortably to each other. Like one of my favorite things about crocheting a one-piece anything is that this doll only has one end to weave in. And I mean, who doesn't want that? It's probably worth mentioning that there is a front side to your crochet piece and the back side to your crochet piece. With Amigurumi or with crochet toys, that is very obvious. And when you are crocheting one-piece toys, just always make sure you are holding the doll or the piece in the right direction so that the neater side is facing outwards and not inwards, because I've made that mistake before. That problem is going to come up a lot in the safari story, and I'm going to show you that. So when crocheting the head onto this one-piece doll, I make sure that the feet are facing towards me so that the right side is also the neater side. That being said, you can decide what is the right side and what is the wrong side. These are toys after all, and I promise you, the person getting this thing can't tell the difference. As long as your toy doesn't fall apart, you're good. So the biggest difference between that first doll that I made from the day at the beach and these mini Z's is that for these ones, the neck is almost as tall as the head. Every time I crochet this doll, this neck just gets longer and longer, and at this point, it's touching the top of the head. I use this long neck pipe cleaner technique for every doll that I make, regardless of the size. The bigger the doll, the wider I make the neck. It really just makes the biggest difference. Fun fact, these heads look exactly the same because they are exactly the same pattern. The one is just worked in reverse. If for whatever reason you want to reverse a pattern, like how I did it, you swap your increases with decreases and your decreases with increases. If you ever want to see the differences between the two, Take one of your favorite patterns and do it in reverse. Just swap your increases with decreases and your decreases with increases. You will be so surprised at how different and yet how similar those things look. One of the most surprising things that I've noticed about these dolls over the years is that the stuffing on the inside of the head expands. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but it never occurred to me that stuffing expands over time. And that's because I never saw it in real life. Until I started this project, I never kept any of the dolls that I made. What this project has allowed me to do is to see what happens to pieces over time, because I would like my toys to last longer than 5 minutes. Last year I learned about blocking. Up until last year, I'd never blocked a thing in my life, and now it's one of my favorite things to do for crochet hair. The one thing that I've definitely picked up is that cotton yarns are the best yarns to use for crochet toys. They are strong and they hold their shape so much better than acrylic or even that plushy stuff. It is incredibly durable, it has such a beautiful clean finish, and it doesn't purl or make those bubbles like acrylic yarn does. I don't work with animal fibers, so I can't comment on that. If you have worked with wool or animal fibers, alpaca, let us know in the comments why you prefer animal fibers. And I'm talking about wool that comes from a sheep, not like in South Africa where we call everything wool. Wool does come from an animal. So here are the main differences between crocheting a head from the top down and from crocheting a head from the bottom up. The top down head is noticeably bigger. This is because increased stitches look bigger than decreased stitches. And that makes sense because increases you're making something bigger and decrease you are making a stitch smaller. It may sound like I'm nitpicking here, but having a bigger head means that there's more weight at the top of the body. What happens when I add the hair on as well, which is also going to add more weight? The thing that surprised me the most about this build is that the top down head is noticeably bigger than the bottom up head. And that's going to make a massive difference once we put the hair on, because there's a lot of hair. So even though this is a quicker build, this doll is my head of choice. What do you think? This construction on the inside of your doll works for any toy. I've sort of done some version of this in this neck. See? And it sticks up fine. Thanks for watching. If you want to see the full breakdown of how to make these dolls, that build will be over on Patreon. I share tips on my socials daily on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but please subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video where I'm going to be making some hair for my dolls, for my mini Z's. Say hi, Polly. Polly. I had such high hopes for. Oh, you're not going to come and say hello? You're so boring.